So, hello everyone, and welcome to Lord Nelson's blog. This week, we're going to be talking a little bit about some research that was conducted here at the Equine Science Center with veterans in honor of Veterans Day. So, I'd like to begin by giving a shout out to all of our veterans out there, and thank you for your service. We very much appreciate your service to our country. So my name is Ellen Rankins. I'm a graduate student here at the Rutgers Equine Science Center. And here with me today, I have Michael Yee, who is a graduate of the Rutgers University and is now a vet student, final year vet student at Colorado State University. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to get started, I'd like you to share a fun fact about yourself so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, so as Ellen mentioned, my name is Mike, and I'm a fourth-year veterinary student here at CSU. A fun fact about me is that I plan to go into small animal emergency medicine and hope to specialize in critical care.
Very cool, and we wish you success with that career path. So I'm going to start our conversation kind of pretty far back. So you participated in this research project that we're going to talk about in a little bit more depth as an undergraduate student. So what led you to pursue undergraduate research in the first place?
Yeah, so the idea of undergrad or research in general was very new to me, and had never participated in anything like this prior to starting undergrad. And I actually started off in Dr. Katz's lab doing a research project on goat behavior, which then I transitioned to doing an equine exercise physiology research with Dr. McKeever, which ultimately led me to this research project that I completed with Dr. Malinowski.
Very cool. So kind of circuitous route, but it got you where you wanted to go. So that's a good thing. And can you talk a little bit about this undergraduate research experience and how it contributed to your growth as an undergraduate student and how maybe you even continue to use some of the things that you learned even today?
Yeah, so for me, research was a very real world experience, and it was a very good introduction for myself into the world of animal research. Much like how you would do if you were a scientist or some kind of researcher. From this, one of the things that I learned, which I thought was very important, is how to read through literature. From reading the literature, I was able to identify any knowledge gaps and things that were unanswered. And from this, it sparked a deeper interest for me, and it allowed me to learn more. During my research, I also pulled a lot of required help from a lot of different sources, including student workers, as well as volunteers, both on the farm and with regards to data entry. And from this, I learned a lot of vital organizational and management skills that I still use today.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing those things with us. And yeah, I'm going to second what Michael has said, and that research does teach you a lot of really valuable skills. And I really thank you, Michael, for pointing some of those out. So now we're going to get into kind of the nitty gritty of the research project itself. So could you briefly describe what the research project was about and what the primary objectives of the study were?
Yeah, so this research project was multimodal with an animal side as well as a human side. The purpose of the study was to identify any stress responses in horses by measuring several different biomarkers and vital parameters, such as heart rate variability, heart behavior, cortisol, and oxytocin during and after the equine-assisted activities and therapies. On the human side, we looked at the responses of veterans who have been diagnosed with PTSD and how they responded after therapy.
So then based off of this, you want to tell us a little bit about what the primary findings of this study were.
So based off our research, we found that the horses did not have any significant increases in stress by means of measuring heart rate variability and cortisol, but we also didn't see any increase in oxytocin, the quote feel-good hormone. So overall, these are pretty neutral findings regarding horses used in this manner, and more research needs to be done. On the human side, they did find significant improvement after equine-assisted activities and therapy, and had a decreased PTSD symptoms after treatment.
Very promising findings, especially on the human side of things. Although sometimes research is disappointing, we don't find, you mentioned kind of these neutral findings, but take what you get sometimes. So you can talk a little bit about why research on the efficacy of equine-assisted activities and therapies is so important, and if you want to address this kind of specific to the veteran population that you were working with, but then also in broader terms of other populations of clients that these centers might be working with.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's substantial research about the positive effects that animal-assisted therapies in general has on people, but that is people as a whole. In addition, there's some research on the positive effects of these same therapies, but for dogs. Now, where we've identified these sort of knowledge gaps is regarding horses. And since there's recently, in the past couple of years, an increase of horses being used in equine-assisted therapies, there is lacking that research. We don't know how these therapies affect horses. Furthermore, we don't know how these therapies affect these target groups, such as veterans with PTSD, or alternatively, people on the autism spectrum. And research needs to be done focusing on these specific target groups.
Yeah, I very much agree with you on that. So lastly, and you kind of addressed this somewhat in the answer to your last question when you talked about kind of the importance of understanding how it's impacting the horse and affecting the horse. But why is that side of the equation so important?
I think with the popularity of equine-assisted therapies growing and becoming a more holistic approach to the conventional therapy methods that are being used, we want to make sure that we limit the physiologic and psychologic stresses on horses if there are any. And we want to make sure that we're not doing harm to these horses and that this can be a viable therapy option.
Thank you for sharing. So that was all the questions I had prepared for you today. So is there anything I've missed or any final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, so I just want to give a shout out to the Equine Science Center and Dr. Malinowski for giving me this opportunity to do research with her. Additionally, I wanted to stress the importance of research, both in not only undergraduate research, and how important it is to get a jump start in your career if this is something you're interested in.
Yeah, so really appreciate you sharing those thoughts, Michael. And I would encourage our listeners out there, if you decide to go a college career route, this is definitely something you should think about. I think Michael's really spoken to how positive an undergraduate research experience can be for you and for your future. So thank you very much for spending your time with us today, Michael. I appreciate you being here.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.